We've all had our share of internet weirdos. This is going to sound cliche, but as someone who admittedly spends a great deal of time on the internet, I didn't think there was anything left that could honestly faze me anymore. I could go on to explain how this was the first time in a long time I had ever been sincerely terrified of anything on my computer screen, and how rattled and paranoid I still feel as I recount this story. But I'll spare you the dramatic tension building and just get right to the point. I was browsing my Facebook feed when a strange series of photographs appeared. I didn't recognize the poster as anyone I actually knew, but me being a glutton for mind-scarring punishment, they were so unusual that I clicked on them anyway. The first photo was of a middle-aged, somewhat heavy-set man wearing a homemade bunny rabbit costume. The base of the ensemble consisted of a forest green spandex suit, big blocky sneakers, short floppy black shorts, and a faded gray t-shirt with some kind of cartoon character depicted on the front. His entire face that I could see, from the thick rolls of his neck to the insides of his ears and hairline, was painted white, with faded black whiskers on his cheeks. His nose was dabbed with a spot of soft pink, and he had matching pink lipstick creasing through the middle of his painted white lips. A set of white bunny ears were glued to a headband around his head. For some inexplicable reason, he wore a dog collar with all this, and he had white, cartoonish gloves on his hands. He was splayed out on a bed like this with his hands clasped, his black eyes expressionless and his mouth a tight, straight line as he stared skittishly into the camera. There was a 4-foot-tall, tattered Bugs Bunny standing up in the corner by the bed, which I had to assume was some kind of idol for him. I cringed but laughed. Another internet fetishist, I thought. This guy must be a real man-child. I went to his page to learn more about him. His description read as follows. To put it short, I am a single/male toon wabbit. I love getting into character and acting like a silly wabbit. I like to play and don't usually bite, unless you ask me to. But beware, I am a very silly wabbit. Winky face. I laughed. This guy had to be at least in his 40s. His profile icon was of himself wearing a tattered pink Easter Bunny costume, waving one tunishly gloved hand at the viewer. I continued to browse his gallery only to find more fetish photos similar to the first one I had seen. He had a particular penchant for approaching the camera with clawed fingers like he was trying to get you, and liked to imply that he was going to tickle the viewer. He had several pictures of himself in the pink Easter Bunny costume mentioned previously that I hoped he never brought out into public. One picture was of the man sitting in a dark room, with its giant toon glove to its mouth, appearing to giggle. Another one was where he was wearing the costume while splayed out on his back on a dirty floor somewhere, seemingly pretending to be dead. Or maybe pretending he was a stuffed animal? It was all very weird. There were hundreds of photos. The first photo set that gave me real pause began with a photo entitled Sleepy Time. This time, the man was wearing something that looked like a Chuck E. Cheese style costume, although it wasn't the Chuck E. Cheese character himself. It was a rodent of some kind, though. The oversized mascot head looked hard and plastic, with pointed furry ears, large buck teeth, and huge, vacant blue eyes. It had a hard pink nose and thick, smudgy black freckles on its upper lips. Thrown over the costume was a white doctor's coat, and in one of his toon gloves, he held a plastic face mask, the kind you would see in a surgical room or dentist's office, used for delivering anesthesia. The mask was pointed toward the viewer as if he were getting ready to put it around the viewer's mouth and nose. The caption below the photo read, "Just take a deep breath and let the gas do its work. Sweet dreams." This was where, in the pit of my stomach, I started to feel chilled. This wasn't just weird anymore. Something felt very wrong. Nevertheless, my curiosity continued to push me forward to learn more about this man. His profile had a link to his YouTube channel, and I hesitantly clicked on it, not knowing what I expected to find. Right before I clicked on the video channel link, I noticed he had left a comment on my Facebook page. I paused to see what it was. The message simply read, "Thanks for the watch, Wally Wabbit." Next to his comment, of course, was the icon of him in the Easter Bunny suit, waving its giant toon hand. I don't remember ever adding this guy on Facebook. My eyes watered up for some reason, and I quickly erased the comment. Although the nagging feeling in my stomach was building, I continued over to his YouTube account. He didn't appear to have many videos, only 4 of them. I figured I already knew what kind of content there would be considering I had just seen his Facebook page, although the videos were very short, ranging from a few seconds to a little over 2 minutes each. I clicked the first video. The first video was relatively tame. It was a small gathering of people wearing furry animal costumes, having a sort of party or meetup outside a hot dog place. The video was about 20 seconds long and the camera was shaky. And nothing really happened in the video aside from awkwardly panning around the group, but as soon as it ended, the second video automatically began to play. The second video was called Grape with Worms. It was 30 seconds long. The man was standing in his kitchen wearing a shiny, full-body purple spandex suit. There were 2 tiny pinholes punctured into both eyes, and for some reason, he wore purple rubber cleaning gloves over the spandex hands. The suit clung to the rolls of his fatty body, and I apologize for sharing this detail, vividly outlined his genitalia. The man stepped back from the camera and revealed a plastic container of night crawlers in one hand. All he did in the video was reach into the container and pinch up night crawlers, showing them off to the viewer. At the end of the video, he moved towards the camera to turn it off. The third video was entitled The Wabbit Hole. The scene opened into a dark room facing a window, a large fan whirring in the windowsill. The video had some slight distortion at the beginning with purple lines jutting in over the screen, but it was brief. A voice introduced the video as an apartment tour. The voice was surprisingly pleasant, even welcoming, and as the camera began moving around the apartment, I couldn't help but think of how nice of an apartment it was. I wondered what he did for a living. Nevertheless, that strange sinking feeling fluttered in and out of my stomach now and then, especially whenever he opened a cabinet or closet. I'm not sure why. The only thing truly unusual about the place was the sheer number of stuffed animals and Looney Tunes paraphernalia, considering this place belonged to a single middle-aged man. The futon couch in the living room was covered in Disney and Looney Tunes stuffed toys, and at random places around the apartment there were inflatable cartoon characters hanging from the ceiling. The wall had many framed pictures of Bugs Bunny, and on one wall was a yellow, diamond-shaped rabbit crossing sign. The tour wasn't very long, only a couple of minutes, and it ended abruptly. The fourth video made a return to the fetish theme. It was called Grape Tickles. The man was back in his shiny purple spandex suit and his rubber kitchen gloves. He was sitting on his futon with all of the stuffed animals, tickling his own feet for the viewer. It was a very short video, and I thought that was the end of this bizarre treasure trove, but once this video ended, another one started playing automatically. To my surprise, these 4 videos were just the beginning to a very long playlist. There were 3 additional videos of the man, now in a bright pink spandex suit calling himself Pepto, performing random acts about the apartment, some of them unsettling. The first video had him standing in his living room with a syringe full of Pepto-Bismol, encroaching on the viewer. In the second, he was cuddling a Bugs Bunny toy on his futon. In the third, he was vacuuming his apartment. Then, for literally 2 seconds, there was a video called Ronald Mcdonald. The video was so short that I couldn't tell if it was a real person or a statue, and if it was the man himself wearing the costume or someone else. It was outdoors, and you could hear the sounds of excited children everywhere. With the videos all playing automatically, this one flashed by quickly, and the content soon returned to more strange activities with Pepto and Grape. The video that almost made me turn this off and close my laptop for the night was a video entitled What Lies Beneath. Suited up as Pepto, the man was standing in his living room in the middle of the night, the only light coming from the white fluorescent bulbs in the kitchen in the next room. He stepped back from the camera and began slowly, as if teasing the viewer, stepping into the pink Easter Bunny costume. I found myself quietly amused by the fact that the yellow rabbit crossing sign was in the background, but I couldn't muster a laugh. My hand only covered my mouth as the man finally finished putting on the costume, slipping the big mascot head over his own. For some inexplicable reason, he then suddenly rushed towards the camera, his floppy pink paw reaching to cover the lens almost as if to silence and smother the viewer for what they had seen. I was starting to think I had had enough, and I'd pretty thoroughly gotten the idea of who Wally the Wabbit was. But before stepping away from this channel forever, I decided to sit through the next and thankfully last 2 videos on his playlist. The entire time I'd been watching, I had felt like this series of increasingly creepy videos would suddenly turn into one of those CreepyPasta stories where there's some shocking bloody gore scene or a victim screaming from another room. What actually happened was even more disturbing than I could have imagined, and quite frankly, magnitudes worse than either of those 2 outcomes. The 2 videos fit together to create a short series entitled Fursuit Piasco. The 2 videos in this series were each less than a minute long. The first video depicted 2 people dressed in full-body animal costumes, similar to the Easter Bunny costume, partaking in some kind of carnival or festival in the middle of the afternoon. They weren't bunnies though. It looked like one was supposed to be a fox and the other one was a raccoon. There were families and children everywhere, and the costumers were covered head to toe in what looked like whipped cream. Surrounding them were children, also covered in the whipped cream, and it appeared as though they had been throwing carnival-style pies at the costumed characters. It was all very innocent. This video, like most of the others, ended abruptly. The second half of the video seemed to take place later, but appeared to be part of the same event depicted in the first video. The same two costume characters appeared from before, only this time they were on a beach. A little blonde girl with pigtails stood between them, holding the hands of both characters as the three of them walked towards the ocean together. Her back was to the camera and I couldn't make out any identifying features other than her hair and her pink clothing. She and the two characters walked to the water, and I thought the video was going to end with them all wading into the water at sunset, but they just kept on walking, deeper and deeper into the water. The girl, not more than 5 or 6 years old, barely stood above the character's knees, and as the water grew deeper, she began to panic. If they were any closer to the camera, I would expect to hear her screaming, but all the viewer could see were her struggles and fits to escape as the two furry animals walked, stiff and robot-like, deeper and deeper into the ocean. The girl's tousled blonde locks disappeared beneath the water's surface, which bubbled and churned with her desperate spasms and silent wailing. The video ended. It's been days now, and I can't stop thinking about Wally or his sick, bizarre photos and videos. Mind you, when I saw the video with the little girl, I immediately called the cops. I didn't know what to say or how to explain how I made it to that YouTube channel in the first place, but I gave them the link. It was all I could do. They said they would look into it, but from the sound of their voices, it seemed like they didn't take any of this very seriously. I checked back later expecting to find the channel shut down, but those videos are still there. The only thing different in any way about the accounts is the last video I described. I clicked on that video again, trying to see if I could make out any more details about the girl. But something was wrong. The little girl was missing. The entire video was the same, but rather than carrying a little girl into the ocean, the two costumed characters were carrying an empty beach chair. They tossed the beach chair into the ocean, and that was that. That was the end of the video. At first I got chills, rapidly trying to re-examine my sanity, and then I became angry. There was a little girl. I know there was a little girl. My head was spinning, my thoughts racing back through everything I had seen on that channel. The photos, the girl, the fact that there was one room in Wally's apartment with some silly yellow "Do Not Cross" police tape covering it and a "Do Not Enter" sign. And that was the only room he wouldn't bring the viewer to on the apartment tour. I don't know if I'm becoming paranoid or losing my mind, but I can only pray and hope that the police took my call seriously. I swear that I'm not making this up, and if you need proof, well, I don't need to tell fellow internet weirdo connoisseurs how to look this up for themselves. You won't think that I'm lying.